What's up guys, my name is Jason Singarayer from the top development team, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite films, Sicario. And if you're stuck on your script, click the link below this video to watch the 3 secrets to a great screenplay. In every great film, the climax is one of the most memorable and anticipated parts. It's the final showdown between the protagonist and the antagonist, where we finally answer the question, who wins? However, what would happen if the protagonist were removed from the entire climax of the film? Sicario, a 2015 crime thriller, does just this. And it still has one of the best climaxes of the last decade. In this video, we will explore how Sicario created a great climax without its protagonist and what makes this unique approach work. The climax of the story on a plot level is usually the scene where we finally answer the question, who wins? Is it the good guys or the bad guys? But in order to create a great climax, the sequence represents much more than that. How your film ends is also your final thematic statement about what the truth is. After all, the conflict of your story should be built upon your characters' beliefs about the world. For the entire film, the characters are waging a war against each other philosophically, often with both having the upper hand in moments of the film, only to be brought down again. In the climax, we find out which belief is the strongest. Sicario's climax is one of the most memorable sequences in the film. Alejandro, a hitman working for the US government, breaks off from the rest of the group to accomplish his true mission, avenging the death of his family. He sneaks into the cartel boss' mansion and kills him and his family at their dinner table. However, when taking a step back and looking at the film, the entire third act, over 20 minutes of the film, our main character is nowhere to be found, which might make you start questioning things. Aren't you supposed to have only one protagonist? How can we just randomly switch the character we're following? If we've been building up to the climax of the entire film, should the protagonist be in the climax? How do we know who wins? There are 2 simple reasons why this climax works in a story like this. But if applied to another type of story, it would completely fall apart. The first reason why it works in the story is because of the character arc that our protagonist has. Most protagonists in films will follow the traditional arc, the most common being the positive change arc. This arc shows the character believing a lie, being challenged, realizing they must change their belief to achieve their goal, and finally changing their belief and becoming a better person because of it. Another common arc is the flat change arc, where the character believes the truth from the beginning, is challenged, doubles down on their belief, and achieves their goals, and changes the rest of the story world along the way. But Sicario uses a less common character arc, the disillusionment arc. This arc is darker than the others and shows the tragic downfall of a protagonist. Other films that use this arc are Parasite and Training Day. The disillusionment arc goes like this. Character believes lie, overcomes lie, and new truth is tragic. In Sicario, Kate Macer is a by-the-book FBI agent who starts as very idealistic and lawful. But as the film progresses, she begins to learn that her worldview does not work when she's thrown into the lawless world of the cartel. By the end, she has given up on her idealism, not empowered by a new belief, but crushed by the truth. While this is darker than the traditional character arcs, it's an arc that can be very powerful if and only if, as K.M. Whalen points out, it's based in truth. Because of this character arc that Kate goes on, Sicario can have its protagonist missing from the climax. The philosophical victor, in this case Alejandro, wins, and therefore we see him carrying out the plot to completion because the goal can only be accomplished through his philosophical belief. This brings us into our second and final reason why Sicario's climax works. The second reason the climax works in the story is because of the philosophical conflict of the film. When you have a protagonist with a disillusionment arc like this, you can have this philosophical antagonist complete the plot, because he has won philosophically. Sicario's philosophical conflict is based on 2 beliefs. Kate's idealistic belief is you must fight evil by following the rule of law and maintaining your morality. And the opposing pragmatic belief is that the ends justify the means when you are fighting an evil that follows no moral code. Remember what I said about the climax and what its purpose is philosophically? You're making your final thesis statement about what your story is saying. You're saying what belief is the truest belief in your story. By Kate failing to stop Alejandro from using his questionable methods to complete the mission, and Alejandro going solo to kill the cartel boss and to avenge his family, this shows which philosophical belief is the strongest. This is why the climax works. Because Kate's absence strengthens what the film is trying to say, the ends justify the means when you're fighting an evil that follows no moral code. You can't just play by the rules because it leaves you vulnerable with your hands tied, which is exactly what happens to Kate. She fails because she believes a lie and is crushed by the tragic truth. If Alejandro was just another teammate that didn't represent anything different philosophically, and he suddenly becomes the focus of the film in the 11th hour, this film would fall flat. You'd be wondering why this random side character was on the screen and not the main character. But I bet you've never considered the fact that Kate was absent from 20 minutes of the third act until I pointed it out. And that's because the decision is rooted in the philosophical conflict and the character arc, and therefore the thematic argument of your story. Alejandro has won. And the denouement seals the deal when Kate reappears and they have their final showdown. Alejandro forces Kate at gunpoint to sign off the waivers and lie on government paperwork. She points a gun at him and he walks out of her apartment, but is unable to pull the trigger because she isn't a wolf. But how do you apply these lessons to your own story? What the screenwriter Taylor Sheridan uses in Sicario's climax does not work for every type of story. However, if you're writing a story where the protagonist goes through the disillusionment arc, using some of the techniques in Sicario can create a strong and unique ending that will be remembered for decades. Here are the questions you can ask yourself to get the ball rolling. Once you've established your philosophical conflict and thematic argument, what character arc must my protagonist go on in order to make the thematic argument as strong as possible? Who must win at the end of the film in order to make my thematic argument as strong as possible in the climax? Who must lose? If my protagonist must lose, does another character who represents the winning belief need to complete the mission and achieve the plot's goal? Remember, when you have a guiding foundation on which to build your story, making decisions like this becomes a lot clearer. Sicario's climax works because it's purposeful. It strengthens the whole point that the film is trying to make. This comes down to understanding your philosophical conflict, character arcs, and thematic argument. And that, my friends, is the climax of Sicario. And if you're stuck on your script, click the link below this video to watch the 3 secrets to a great screenplay. And as always, until next time.